Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Norway Chess 2023, one of the strongest chess tournaments of the calendar year. This tournament has had many storylines, but the main one has maybe been Magnus Carlsen struggling to win a game in classical chess, being middle of the pack for the first time in a very long time, and today even saying in a post-game interview that he's happy to be done, essentially hailing it in, like when a sports team brings out their worst lineup to run out the clock and end the game. This is surprising stuff. We will jump into this and some of the other storylines in a moment, but first I want to thank the sponsor of today's video, PayPal Honey. What's my favorite thing that takes 2 clicks? Caro Khan. What's my other favorite thing that takes 2 clicks? Using PayPal Honey, the #1 shopping tool in America. Honey will automatically search for promo codes while you shop online so that you don't have to. Watch this. Let's say that you would like a new pair of shoes, because everybody knows that better shoes correlate with higher ELO. You browse around online and you find some you like. On the checkout page, when the H turns orange, you click and you click again. And boom, now you're saving and your feet are happy. Now, Honey finds discounts on average of 18%. So you can keep that in mind when you shop for some more expensive items you may like. Like right now, it's 2023. A lot of people are working from home, so you may want a better chair. In fact, maybe you like this chair. Well, click again, and there you go, you're saving again. Honey is available on over 30,000 different websites, and it has over 17 million members. Some of you are probably already using it, and if you're not, you should definitely give it a try. Get Honey for absolutely free right now by going to joinhoney.com/Gotham. Now you can shop with confidence. Now let's get back to the video. Thank you, sponsored Gotham. My friends, these are the standings after 7 games. Magnus in 7th place, but with a couple of wins in the last few rounds. In Classical, he will get 3 points, just like in the great sport of soccer, or correctly named football. Magnus will make a comeback. Today, he's got the black pieces versus Shahryar Mamediyarov. Everything comes down to these last couple of games. Magnus playing into a Queen's Gambit declined. You can play DC, you can play Knight BD7, you can play Semi-Slav, you can play Rogozin. But Magnus plays the classical, which is solid. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the Queen's Gambit decline, but if you're gonna play for a win with black, it is virtually impossible. It is impossible in these positions. Why? White is just gonna take all the pawns. White is going to take in the center, take multiple times in the center, and then he's just gonna develop, and then he's just gonna castle. And Magnus could take some risk in this position, but he would be insane to do so, okay? This is like the equivalent of playing Russian roulette, but with chess. And what happens is, I don't know, quite strange. The pieces get traded. Knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, queen takes, the rook comes. And after 20 moves of play, this was the position. This was it. This is a draw. And it took the players a little bit of time and shuffling. Queens, they shuffled back and forth, and they made a draw. Magnus has had one other game like this. One other game thus far in this tournament. It was against Hikaru. And it's really difficult to take massive risk and play for a win with black if your opponent doesn't want to. And Shahryar clearly did not want to. All right? Just like both guys. All right? But now, the good news is we have an Armageddon. But after this, we're going to debrief. All right, we're going to debrief a little bit because, and in his post-game interview, Magnus even said as much. He was like, look, after the game with Alireza, if you were watching round 7 recap, that was a big blow. Magnus was very close to winning that game, and he ended up not winning it. And he said, I'm basically done, right? Now, the crazy thing about Magnus is he is just like any great sports team. You are just waiting for him to erupt, all right? He's like one of the tennis players, down 2 sets, all right? And we got an Armageddon game. 10 minutes for white, 7 minutes for black. Magnus took on c3. He brought out his knights and bishop e6. And Shahryar really playing some aggressive chess here. f4, very edgy and interesting move. Playing a6, instigating over here. We're going to see how Magnus can handle this position with all his pawns on the dark squares. Queen a4. What is this? It's crazy stuff here that Mamediyarov is doing. By attacking over there. Bishop is going to pressure, pawn is going to pressure, all of these crisscross applesauce of a position. Knight takes a queenless middle game. White has a nice position, but has no real targets. And it's not really clear if this pawn is an asset or a liability. Personally, I just think Mamedyarov is trying to have fun. That's it. I just think that Mamedyarov wants to have a fun game of chess when he sits down to play. Takes, c4, rook a4, c5. Magnus builds up a very powerful wall here, and he has pressure here. He has eyes on stuff. This is the major weakness of the white position. So Magnus will try to just keep an eye on it as he maneuvers his pieces. And here he does something very interesting. Magnus sacrifices the rook. Rook takes e3. All right, this is a massive decision, rook e3. The idea is to bring the black king out and hunt him down in the center of the board with rook e8, rook e2, force him back into a corner and do this. Look at this insane position. It's knight and 2 pawns for black for a rook for white. Magnus has all sorts of nasty intentions over here. g4, and I mean, it just looks like he's gonna be arriving here with knight to f3 check, but he's not rushing, he plays f5. It's a miserable position for white. White's got absolutely nothing cooking for him here. He's trying to trade the pieces, trying to consolidate. Now it's time for Magnus to bring his king, but wait a minute. There was a moment here, rook d1, Magnus could have taken the pawn on c4, but instead he opts to bring the king, and now, after rook to e2, there are some serious winning chances. Serious winning chances. Rook and knight, Magnus might lose the Armageddon as well. Knight to b4, and here, this is a fake threat. In this position, white should play king e3. King e3 is the move. Knight a6, rook a1. But Schach plays a passive move to defend himself, and Magnus walks in, eats the pawn, and advances his c-pawn. And my friends, that is the end of the game. Because white can not defend against the promotion, and for a 6th time in this tournament, Magnus wins a game in Armageddon as Mamedyarov resigns because this, and this promotes. This promotes. So Magnus wins. Magnus wins the match. All right, great. But he has no chance of winning first. He's probably going to finish in the bottom half. He's going to finish 5th or 6th out of 10. And you just, I don't know, you just get the sense that, like, it wasn't his tournament. And maybe classical chess just in general is, like, on the decline in the eyes of Magnus. You know, because we've just gotten so accustomed to dominance for so long. I don't remember the last time he had a bad classical tournament. This, for him, is a bad classical tournament. He hasn't won a game. He hasn't lost the game either, but that's not the standard, right? And it's just, it might, you know, and he's had a great time playing these rapid games, so that might just be where the pendulum is swinging. So he's done. And he said as much in the post-game interview. He's just happy for the tournament to be over. Which is just not, that's not what he's done for years. You know what I mean? It's just not what he's done for years. So it's just, we'll see what's next. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying you got to win every single game you play, like with White. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying I don't think he said stuff like that in his career, you know? And it's interesting to see. But that's not the end of the story. Yes, we had Magnus. But we have several other things going on. Number 1, Hikaru playing Nodjerbek. Hikaru's playing for first place. You know who else is playing for first place? Fabiano Caruana. You want to stick around? You want to stick around? Hikaru with white. It's the Armageddon. They drew their first game. It's a Berlin main line. The new trendy main line, not the end game. All right. Hikaru playing a symmetrical pawn structure. Keep something in mind, my friends. Hikaru's playing for first place, so he's got to win the Armageddon. Fabiano is playing for first place as well. Tomorrow, Fabiano has the black pieces versus Hikaru, so that sets up everything, all right? That sets up the whole shebang. We got A4, A5, completely symmetrical position. Now, folks, here Hikaru starts doing a little ritualistic knight jump. He, like, jumps the knight back to g7, brings the other knight to f5, brings that knight to h4. Hikaru just really loves riding around on horses. Queen h4. Now he brings the queen back to d8. I mean, that is some trippy chat GPT type of stuff here. Nodjerbek attacks his rook. Hikaru goes here. Now, Nodjerbek clearly, you know, looking for some sort of knight stuff. Hikaru goes bishop f8 to trade the bishops. So far, so good. Queen c7. Life is good. King to g7. Hikaru's doing a great job. Like he's not going to lose this game. He's not going to lose. He strikes back with c5, and now Nodjerbek attacks his rook, and Hikaru's nice and solid, position looking very fancy. But now Nodjerbek's like, all right, hi, I'm here to attack. I have h6, I have queen g5, and so on and so forth. h6. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a second. f6 is played here. Excuse me, f5 is played here by Hikaru to prevent the queen from getting in. And Nordirbek plays knight takes c4, which is a crazy move. The idea of knight takes c4 is that if black takes the queen, white is just going to take black. If black takes the rook, white is just going to take... And at the end of the day, the king is going to be forced to the corner, and rook e8 just wins. Because you pin the bishop to the rook, and you threaten mate. So this is what would happen. And black would just run out of oxygen. Look at this oxygen tank depleting here, as black only has several legal moves remaining. Nordirbek plays knight c4, wins the game just a moment later, and Hikaru resigns. So Hikaru loses in Armageddon. I mean, he hasn't lost in Armageddon in a long time. So now it comes down to whether or not how Fabiano is going to score in his game. Now, he drew against Wesley, so Fabi's got the white pieces. We have a Queen's Gambit declined. We have takes. This is a mainline deep stuff here. We're not gonna do a crazy amount of analysis. Take, knight to the middle, kicking the knight out of the center, and it's queens, rooks, and knight. All right, rook e2, rook e1. Now Fabi plays c4, looking to poke. c5, looking to poke on the queen side. a4, looking to instigate. And now here comes Wesley counterattacking with g5. Queen is rotating. Fabi's just trying to knock on the door here, see what's up. cb, e4, cracking open the center. a5, e3, countermeasure, hits the queen. You can't take the pawn, but white goes queen e1 with eyes on the pawn on e3. Wesley counterattacking on d4. Wesley actually got his knight trapped here by accident because he can't go knight d5. And if he plays a move like knight d7, white goes d5 and cracks through. So instead of that, we have queen d7, and Wesley's lost his knight. Wesley here tried to meet a5 with a counterattacking measure, right? Tried to just do something here with an e3, but the knight gets stuck, and now Fabi's just up a clean piece. And he just cleans it up, gets the king out of the way, looks for trades, stops the pawn, creates a beautiful Tetris piece, and even in the eyes of getting mated in one move, he trades the rooks, he loses a pawn, but this is game over. Defending everything, checking, winning pawns, checking and winning more pawns, checking and winning more pawns, and it's just a matter of time as queen e4, knight d3, and in this position Wesley resigned because you would go here, trade the queen, and make a new one. Fabi wins. Hikaru loses, Fabi wins his Armageddon. And there's one more game I would like to show you. This game. This game out of nowhere. Have some patience, don't go anywhere. We have a crazy situation brewing in India. We have a crazy situation brewing in India. Something might happen in India for the first time in 40 years, 30 years. Classical game between Gukesh and Ariantari. Gukesh plays a London. That's not something that's happened for the first time in India. That's not what's happening. E3, knight f3, it's a London. Typical London stuff. Nothing surprising. White. Oh, never mind. h4. Wow. Okay. That's clearly an indication of hostilities. I mean, I'm used to h3 and all this stuff, but no, this is just Gukesh saying I'm going to play h5. Tari thinks for a while and plays c5. Tari thinks for 20 minutes here and plays c5. Tari can play h6 and h5. He can also play neither of those moves as he chooses in the game. He chooses not to give the g5 square away, and he chooses not to give the pawn as a potential target for white with ideas like knight e5. So he plays c5, and Gukesh responds knight e5. Centralizing, now knight c6 not possible. Knight bd7 certainly is possible. That's exactly what Tari plays. Now bishop e2. And it's very clear Gukesh wants to play h5. Black should play h5. If black waits and allows h5, this is just extremely unpleasant. There is absolutely no reason to allow this. Okay? h5 played. Now, knight c6. Knight c6 looks like the queen is trapped, but the queen can just go to e8. And now Gukesh plays b4. This is one of the weirdest Londons I've ever seen. The pawns have been, walking over here. White is refusing to castle, although he might. He's just poking at the queen side, and there's just a random horse just grazing around in the black position. Castles. e5, counterattacking measure. All right, counterattacking measure from Aryan Tari. b5, anchoring the knight. I think Aryan probably should have tried to attack the knight with his bishop, because when you try to do it this way, because you have wandered into the center, there's a really nice tactical defense here, which is the move c4. And now we have a very tense moment. You cannot take the pawn because I have d5, and if you take, I fork you. So wandering out here with your queen might actually prove to backfire, okay? Instead, we have bishop c6, takes, and now the queen should take. Of course, if you do this, there is bishop f3, but Tari gets a little bit spooked of all that and plays knight f6. And then here, Gukesh blows up the center. What do you need to set off an explosion? You need c4. What do you need to set off an explosion when you already have c4? You need e4, which is a new type of explosive. Both pawns are now staring at the pawn. Whichever pawn the pawn takes, the pawn will push. This is not a riddle. You play e4, whichever pawn the pawn takes, you push. If you take this way, then I'm going to go here, and my pawns are joining, and black is completely lost. You cannot stop two connected pass pawns like this in the center of the board in the middle of a game. You just can't do it. Just can't do it. So, e4, knight e4, cd5 poking at the queen, knight e4 luring in the queen, d5. Gukesh chops down all the chaos in the center of the board, and even though he's a pawn down, a clean pawn down, these pawns hold hands, and they are walking down the board together. And now Gukesh can trade everything. He could trade everything. What he doesn't want is opposite colored bishops, but he can trade a rook, he could trade a queen, and he's just got a police escort for these pawns. These pawns are very important individuals sitting in bulletproof cars, okay? Knight f6, here comes the police escort with the bishops. d6, look at this position. Look at these two pawns. Now, it's not over. It's not over, but it's very unpleasant. It's not fatal, but it's very unpleasant. Like a canker sore, okay? I get those like, once a month. You didn't have to know that, but, you watch me a lot, so, it's all right if you know a couple of personal, details. The bishops are escorting the pawns. All right, now the pawns are going to go down this way. e4. Good. And now Tari plays knight d5, counterattacking the rook, looking for knight c3. This is good. If Tari gets these bishops away, then, the pawns might be a little weaker. Rook c1. But my friends, Gukesh is coming. Gukesh is coming. Remember how I said the first thing happening in India that hasn't happened in like 30 years? Yeah. Get ready. Look at this. This is one of the strangest positions ever. It's a seal preventing the white pieces from seeing the pawns. But the queen just goes around. Queen doesn't need to get to the end of the cliff. The queen just goes around, escorting. And when the pawn goes to d7, the bishop, what? This man, Gukesh, has two pawns on the 7th rank in the middle of a game. How did this position even happen? How did the pawns sneak through? How did they get past the security? What the heck is going on? b5, counterattacking measure, hits the pawn on a4. Gukesh sacks the bishop. The queen on a4, not the pawn on a4. Gukesh sacks the bishop. You know why Gukesh sacks the bishop? Because in this position, not only does he sacrifice the bishop, in this position, he also sacrifices the queen! The idea is that if this, he makes a new one, and it's a fork, and after this, he makes a new one. Gukesh gets 3 queens in one game. That's what happens when pawns get to the 7th rank. Not only when pawns get to the 7th rank, when they're holding hands together. Gukesh, 1 click, 2 clicks, and boom. 1 click and 2 clicks, like boom. Just like PayPal Honey. Smart. Look at that. That was a callback. That's what that's called. Remember how earlier in the video there was a sponsored integration? Let me know if you appreciate that. Queen takes d7 instead, because you got to get rid of one of the pawns. Queen e4, knight a2, and when the dust settles, here's our position. Problem is that white is completely winning. Why is white completely winning? Pawn on c7. Even though one of them fell, the legacy of the other pawn lives on, and this endgame is completely lost after bishop d6, rook c8, the final dagger, bishop c5. If bishop here, rook d8 check, anchored by the pawn. If the bishop goes back to f6, you still have rook d8. Take, 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 check. Gukesh wins. My friends, here are your standings after 8 rounds of action at Norway Chess. Massive game coming up tomorrow. All right? Just cover the whole screen. You don't need to see me. Tomorrow, Hikaru has white versus Fabiano. Hikaru is 2.5 points behind Fabiano. If Hikaru wins against Fabiano tomorrow, he is the winner of Norway Chess 2023. I hope Hikaru plays for a win. Magnus is tied for 6th and 7th place. He is just half a point away from being an 8th. That is wild stuff. And one more thing. What has happened in India for the first time in nearly 30 years, if not more than that? Gukesh is now up to 2744. He is now up to number 13 in the world. Gukesh is 10 rating points away from being the #1 ranked Indian chess player on the planet, something that has not occurred since the days of Vishy Anand in the 1990s. For the first time in nearly 40 years, India might have a new world #1 by the end of the year. That's crazy. I'll see you for the last round of the tournament tomorrow. Now get out of here.